The Chaldean Catholic Church is an Eastern Syriac particular church of the Catholic Church, under the Holy See of the Catholicos Patriarch of Babylon, maintaining full communion with the Bishop of Rome and the rest of the Catholic Church. The Chaldean Catholic Church presently comprises an estimated 500,000 people in northern Iraq, and adjacent areas in southeast Turkey and northwest Iran. There is a vigorous and often heated discussion about the ethnicity and ethnic self-identification of Chaldean Catholics. History. The history of the Chaldean Church is the history of the Church of the East, founded between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD in Assyria, represented today by at least 11 different churches. Between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, the region of Assyria was also the birthplace of the Syriac language and Syriac script, both of which remain important within all strands of Syriac Christianity. The terms Syriac and Syrian originally being Indo-Anatolian derivatives of Assyrian. It was originally a part of the Assyrian Church of the East before the 1553 consecration of Shemunate Yohanan Sulaka, who entered communion with the Roman Catholic Church, when it was renamed the Church of Athura and Mosul. Subsequent to this, it was again renamed by Rome in 1683 as the Chaldean Catholic Church, despite none of its Assyrian adherents being connected ethnically, historically or geographically to the long-extinct Chaldeans, who had been completely absorbed into the general population of Babylonia in the 6th century BC, disappearing from history. After the extensive massacres of Assyrian and other Christians by Tamerlane around 1400 AD had devastated many Assyrian bishoprics and finally destroyed the 4,000-year-old city of Ashur. The Church of the East, which had extended as far as China, Central Asia, Mongolia and India, was largely reduced to Assyria, its place of origin. It was followed by its core founders of Eastern Aramaic-speaking ethnic Assyrians who lived largely in the area of northern Mesopotamia between modern Haran and Hakkari in the north to Mosul, Erbil and Kirkuk in the south, and from Salmas and Urmia in the east to Al-Hisakar, Terabdan and Edessa in the west, an area approximately encompassing ancient Assyria. The episcopal see was moved to Al-Kosh, in the Mosul region, and Patriarch Mashimun Agi Basidi made the office of Patriarch hereditary in his own family. 1552. Yohanan Sulaka, descent over the hereditary succession grew until 1552, when a group of Assyrian bishops from the northern regions of Amid and Salmas elected a priest, Mar Yohanan Sulaka, as a rival patriarch, to look for a bishop of metropolitan rank to consecrate him patriarch. Sulaka traveled to the Pope in Rome and entered into communion with the Catholic Church, after first being refused by the Syriac Orthodox Church. In 1553 he was consecrated bishop and elevated to the rank of patriarch, taking the name of Mashimunate. He was granted the title of Patriarch of the East Assyrians, and his church was named the Church of Athura and Mosul. Mashimunate Yohanan Sulaka returned to northern Mesopotamia in the same year and fixed his seat in Amid, before being put to death by the partisans of the Assyrian Church of the East Patriarch of Al-Kosh. He ordained 5 metropolitan bishops, thus beginning a new ecclesiastical hierarchy. The patriarchal line known as the Shemun line. The area of influence of this patriarchate soon moved from Amid east, fixing the see, after many places, in the isolated Assyrian village of Okhanis. The connections with Rome loosened up under Sulaka's successors. The last patriarch to be formally recognized by the Pope died in 1600. The hereditary status of the office was reintroduced in 1692. The communion with Rome was formally broken, with this part of the church once more rejoining the Assyrian Church of the East. 1672. The Josephite line of Amid, a new so-called Chaldean Patriarchate, occurred in 1672 when Mar Joseph I, Archbishop of Amid, entered in communion with Rome, separating from the Assyrian Church Patriarchal See of Alkosh. In 1681 the Holy See granted him the title of Patriarch of the Chaldeans. Deprived of its patriarch, all Joseph I's successors took the name of Joseph. The life of this patriarchate was difficult at the beginning due to the vexations from the traditionalists, under which they were subject from a legal point of view, and later it struggled with financial difficulties due to the tax burden imposed by the Ottoman authorities. Nevertheless, its influence expanded from the original towns of Amid and Mardin towards the area of Mosul and the Nineveh plains. The Josephite line merged in 1830 with the Alkosh Patriarchate that in the meantime entered in full communion with Rome. The Alkosh Patriarchate in communion with Rome, the largest and oldest patriarchal see of the Assyrian Church of the East, was based at the Rabban Hormizd monastery of Alkosh. It spread from Accra up to Sirte and Nisibis, covering in the south the rich plain of Mosul. Already in the short period between 1610 and 1617 it entered in communion with Rome, and in 1771 the Patriarch Eliademka signed a Catholic confession of faith, but no formal union resulted. When Eliademka died, his succession was disputed by two cousins. Eliarisho Yab, who was recognized by Rome but soon broke the communion, and Yohanan Hormizd, who considered himself a Catholic. In 1804, after Eliarisho Yab's death, Yohanan Hormizd remained the only patriarch of Alkosh. There were thus two patriarchates in communion with Rome, the larger one in Alkosh, and in Amid that ruled by Augustan Hindi. Rome did not want to choose between the two candidates and granted neither the title of Patriarch, even if from 1811 it was Augustan Hindi who ruled the church. After Hindi's death, on July 5, 1830, Yohanan Hormizd was formally confirmed Patriarch by Pope Pius VIII with the title of Patriarch of Babylon of the Chaldeans. The merger of the Patriarchates of Alkosh and Amid was completed. On the other hand, the Shimun line of patriarchs, based in Okanus, remained in the Assyrian Church, independent of the new Chaldean Church. The Patriarchate of the present-day Assyrian Church of the East, with its see in Chicago, forms the continuation of that line. 19th century expansion and disaster. The following years of the Chaldean Church were marked by externally originating violence. In 1838 the monastery of Rabban Hormizd and the town of Alkosh was attacked by the Kurds of Sauran and hundreds of Christian Assyrians died. In 1843 the Kurds started to collect as much money as they could from Assyrian villagers, killing those who refused. More than 10,000 Assyrian Christians of all denominations were killed and the icons of the Rabban Hormizd monastery defaced. In 1846 the Chaldean Church was recognized by the Ottoman Empire as of Millet, a distinctive religious community in the empire, thus obtaining its civic emancipation. The most famous patriarch of the Chaldean Church in the 19th century was Joseph VI Order, who is remembered also for his clashes with Pope Pius IX, mainly about his attempts to extend the Chaldean jurisdiction over the Indian Syro-Malabar Catholic Church. This was a period of expansion for the Chaldean Catholic Church. In the early 20th century, Russian Orthodox missionaries established two dioceses in North Assyria. Many Assyrian leaders believed that the Russian Empire would be more interested in protecting them than the British Empire and the French Empire, hoping for the support of the Russians. World War I and the subsequent Assyrian genocide was seen as the right time to rebel against the Ottoman Empire. An Assyrian War of Independence was launched, led by Aga Petros and Malik Koraba. On 4 November 1914 the Turkish Enver Pasha announced the Jihad, the Holy War, against the Christians. Assyrian forces fought successfully against overwhelming odds in northern Iraq, southeast Turkey and northwest Iran for a time. However, the Russian Revolution in 1917 and the collapse of Armenian resistance left the Assyrians cut off from supplies of food and ammunition, vastly outnumbered and surrounded. Assyrian territories were overrun by the Ottoman Empire and their Kurdish and Arab allies, and the people forced to flee. Most who escaped the massacres and continuation of the Assyrian genocide died from cold in the winter or hunger. The disaster struck mainly the regions of the Assyrian Church of the East, and the Chaldean dioceses in North Assyria were ruined. A further massacre occurred in 1933 at the hands of the Iraqi army, in the form of the Simela massacre, which resulted in thousands of deaths. 21st century eparchies around the world. A recent development in the Chaldean Catholic Church has been the creation in 2006 of the Eparchy of Oceania, with the title of St. Thomas the Apostle of Sydney of the Chaldeans. This jurisdiction includes the Chaldean Catholic communities of Australia and New Zealand, and the first bishop, named by Pope Benedict XVI on 21 October 2006, is Archbishop D.J. Ibrahim Kassab, until this date, Archbishop of Basura in Iraq. There has been a large immigration to the United States, particularly to southeast Michigan. Although the largest population resides in southeast Michigan, there are populations in parts of California and Arizona as well. Canada in recent years has shown growing communities in both eastern provinces, such as Ontario, and in western Canada, such as Saskatchewan. In 2008, Marbawari Sorrow of the Assyrian Church of the East and 1,000 Assyrian families were received into full communion with the Chaldean Catholic Church from the Assyrian Church of the East. On Friday, June 10, 2011, Pope Benedict XVI erected a new Chaldean Catholic eparchy in Toronto, Canada, and named Archbishop Mar Yohanan Zora, who has worked alongside 4 priests with Catholics in Toronto for nearly 20 years and who was previously an ad personam archbishop and the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Awaz, Oran. The new eparchy, or diocese, will be known as the Chaldean Catholic Eparchy of Maradai. There are 38,000 Chaldean Catholics in Canada. Archbishop Zora was born in Batnaya, Iraq, on March 15, 1939. He was ordained in 1962 and worked in Iraqi parishes before being transferred to Iran in 1969. The 2006 Australian census counted a total of 4,498 Chaldean Catholics in that country. Persecution in Iraq. Assyrians of all denominations, and other religious minorities in Iraq, have endured extensive persecution since 2003, including the abductions and murders of their religious leaders, threats of violence or death if they do not abandon their homes and businesses, and the bombing or destruction of their churches and other places of worship. All this has occurred as anti-Christian emotions rise within Iraq after the American invasion and the fall of Saddam Hussein in 2003 and the rise of militant jihadists and religious militias. Father Raghid Aziz Ghani, the pastor of the Chaldean Church of the Holy Spirit in Mosul, who graduated from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, Angelicum in Rome in 2003 with a licentiate in ecumenical theology, was killed on 3 June 2007 in Mosul alongside the subdeacons Basman Yusuf Daud, Wahid Hana Isho, and Ghassan Isam Bidaud, after he celebrated Mass. Chaldean Archbishop Paulus Faraj Rahor and 3 companions were abducted on 29 February 2008 in Mosul, and murdered a few days later. Ecumenical relations. The Church's relations with its fellow Assyrians in the Assyrian Church of the East have improved in recent years. In 1994, Pope John Paul II and Patriarch Dinka IV of the Assyrian Church of the East signed a common Christological declaration. On 20 July 2001, the Holy See issued a document, in agreement with the Assyrian Church of the East, named guidelines for admission to the Eucharist between the Chaldean Church and the Assyrian Church of the East, which confirmed also the validity of the anaphora of Adian Mari. Structure. The Chaldean Catholic Church has the following dioceses: Patriarchate of Babylon, Metropolitan Archdioceses of Baghdad, Kirkuk, Tehran, Urmia, Archdioceses of Ahwaz, Basra, Diyarbakir, Erbil, Mosul, Eparchies of Aleppo, Alkirk, Ahmadiyya, Accra, Beirut, Cairo, St. Peter the Apostle of San Diego, St. Thomas the Apostle of Detroit, Chaldean Catholic Eparchy of Maradi of Toronto, St. Thomas the Apostle of Sydney, Salmus, Sulaymaniyah, Zaku. Territories dependent on the Patriarch. Jerusalem, Jordan. Hierarchy. The current Patriarch is Louis Sacco, elected in January 2013. In October 2007, his predecessor, Emmanuel III Delhi, became the first Chaldean Catholic Patriarch to be elevated to the rank of Cardinal within the Catholic Church. The present Chaldean Episcopate is as follows: Mar Louis Raphael I Sacco, Patriarch of Babylon; Mar Emmanuel III Delhi, Patriarch Emeritus of Babylon; Emil Shimon Nona, Archbishop of Mosul; Bashar Wada, Archbishop of Arbel; Ramzi Garmau, Archbishop of Tehran; Thomas Merim, Archbishop of Urmia and Salmus; Johanan Zora, Archbishop of Toronto; Jibrail Kasib, Archbishop of Sydney; Marjak Ishak, titular Archbishop of Nisibis and Curial, Bishop of Babylon; Habib al-Nawfali, Archbishop of Basra; Yusuf Merkish, Archbishop of Kirkuk and Sulaymaniyah; Mar Mikpola Makdisi, Bishop of Alkosh; Mar Shlomo Warduni, Curial, Bishop of Babylon; Mar Saad Sarop, Auxiliary Bishop of Babylon; Mar Anthony Order, Bishop of Aleppo; Mar Michael Kasurgi, Bishop of Lebanon; Mar Rabban al-Quwais, Bishop of Ahmadiyya and Zakko; Mar Ibrahim, Bishop of St. Thomas the Apostle of Detroit; Mar Francis Calabat, Bishop of St. Thomas the Apostle of Detroit; Mar Sawhad Joseph Jamo, Bishop of St. Peter the Apostle of San Diego; Mar Bawa Isoro, titular Bishop of Forashna and Auxiliary Bishop of St. Peter the Apostle of San Diego. Several sees are vacant: Archeparchy of Diyarbakir, Archeparchy of Ahwaz, Eparchy of Aqra, Eparchy of Cairo. Liturgy. The Chaldean Catholic Church uses the East Syrian Rite. A slight reform of the liturgy was effective since 6 January 2007, and it aimed to unify the many different uses of each parish, to remove centuries-old additions that merely imitated the Roman Rite, and for pastoral reasons. The main elements of variations are the anaphora said aloud by the priest, the return to the ancient architecture of the churches, the restoration of the ancient use where the bread and wine are readied before a service begins, and the removal from the creed of the filioque clause. Naming issues. It is believed that the term Chaldean Catholic arose due to a Latin misinterpretation and misreading of the Hebrew custom as meaning of the Chaldees. The Hebrew custom does not mean or refer to the Chaldeans. Custom is generally believed by many to have been somewhere in Assyria, northeastern Syria or southeastern Anatolia. The term Chaldean Catholic is historically, usually and properly taken purely as a doctrinal and theological term for Assyrian converts to Catholicism. Despite this, a minority of Chaldean Catholics have in recent times confused a purely religious term with an ethnic identity, and espoused a separate ethnic identity, despite there being no historical, academic, cultural, geographic, archaeological, linguistic, anthropological or genetic evidence supporting a link to the late Iron Age Chaldean land or civilization. Raphael Bidewide, the then Patriarch of the Chaldean Catholic Church, commented on the Assyrian name dispute in 2003 and clearly differentiated between the name of a church and the name of an ethnicity. I personally think that these different names serve to add confusion. The original name of our church was the Church of the East, when a portion of the Church of the East became Catholic in the 17th century. The name given to the church was Chaldean, based on the Magi kings who were believed by some to have come from what once had been the land of the Chaldean to Bethlehem. The name Chaldean does not represent an ethnicity. Just a church, we have to separate what is ethnicity and what is religion. My sect is Chaldean, but ethnically, I am Assyrian. In an interview with the Assyrian Star in the September-October 1974 issue, he was quoted as saying,